They're recording.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll call to order the meeting of the Park Committee for Wednesday, February 28th, 2018. It's 4:05, and we have President Alderman John Vanderleest, Alderman Chris Weary, and myself, Alderman David Nenite. I want to remind everyone before we get going that the Improvement Services Committee has a public hearing scheduled for 6 p.m. So I know we have a lot on our agenda, but I think if we work diligently, we can probably be done by that point. So I don't mean to halt discussion or anything, but if we're not done by 6, we're going to have to recess this committee and then come back to it after INS. So let's give that a try.
Alderman Vanderleest has to not talk as much.
Okay. First item is approval of the minutes of the meeting of February 14th, 2018. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by
Second.
Alderman Vanderleest, seconded by Alderman Weary to approve the minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections? Okay. If not, we'll take a motion to adopt the agenda by Alderman Vanderleest, seconded by Alderman Weary. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. First item is consideration with possible action on a donation by the Baird Creek Preservation Foundation to remove buckthorn and complete an oak savanna restoration project south of Triangle Hill. So, Dan, do you have a report for us?
Yes, I do. So I just handed out a proposal from the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation. The first few pages are the written description. The last page is a map showing the area. So what they'd like to do is complete an oak savanna restoration just south of Triangle Hill. If you're not familiar with an oak savanna, it was prevalent in Wisconsin in the pre-settlement times, and it can be considered a transition area between a prairie and a woodland. So it's kind of pockets of trees with a prairie in between. This area was once a savanna, and now it's kind of turning into a forested area. A few years ago, they did find a remnant prairie, a little pocket remnant prairie in this area, and we did do a planned prairie burn a few years ago in this area. So what they'd like to do now is continue to improve it. So if approved, what the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation would do is they would hire a specialist to remove all of the buckthorn within this 19-acre area of the greenway. The larger buckthorn would be cut with chainsaws and removed, and the smaller buckthorn would be removed with a mower attachment on a bobcat. All of the stumps from the buckthorn would be treated with chemicals to prevent the buckthorn from regrowing. If you don't treat them with chemicals, they'll just resprout again. After the buckthorn is removed, the city foresters will go into the area and determine how many, if any, undesirable trees or diseased trees should be removed as part of this project. If we do find that there are trees that are not conducive to an oak savanna restoration, either undesirable or diseased, the forestry crews would then our city forestry crews would then cut them down, and volunteers would remove them. And then in the spring of 2020, the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation would then have a prairie burn in this entire 19-acre area that was cleared. What the prairie burn does is it would kill any new buckthorn that sprouts from the seeds that were deposited, and it will help the existing prairie plants that are there thrive. So it'll kind of knock down a lot of the vegetation, and then the prairie plants will grow better. A total of 3 prairie burns will be planned over the next 10 years. And just so that everyone's clear, all of the proposed prairie burns would be brought back to the Park Committee for approval after the burn plans are reviewed by Park staff and approved by the Fire Department. So right now, we're just approving the clearing and going ahead with the project, but the prairie burns will have, they'll have to come back for more approval. Over the next few years, the area would be closely monitored to make sure that if erosion occurs or if additional prairie plants need to be installed, that work gets done. So as a staff, we're supportive of this request. There are people from the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation here, if you'd like to entertain a motion to let them speak.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to open the floor.
So moved.
Alderman Vanderleest, seconded by Alderman Weary. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are open. If you'd like to speak, please come forward. Anybody? Okay.
I don't think we all need to speak, but I'm the executive director, and these are two of my board members. So if you have any specific questions, we can answer those. Or if you just, I'm not sure exactly what you need to go forward. But we want to do this project partly because oak savannas are prevalent, and we want to restore the area to what it used to be, getting out all the invasives.
Okay, any
This-
questions by,
Go ahead.
would you folks like to speak? No?
I guess what I'd say is that we've been doing buckthorn removal in Bear Creek for about 12 years now. And this was one of the very first places that we did. And if you look at the backside of Triangle Hill right now, you find that it's very, very densely overgrown with buckthorn. And this is an attempt on our part to say, okay, we didn't do the adequate job in the follow-up when we did it the first time. And so recognizing that it's a much larger task than we can now do with volunteers and volunteer labor, then moving towards getting this done with contract and with us raising the money to have it done by professionals. It's an acknowledgement of the scope of the problem in the Greenway and our ability to address that problem just using volunteer labor. So,
Okay. Could I ask what you estimate the value of your donation to be?
I'd say anywhere, long-term, the investment's probably close to $20,000 to $25,000. So we're, the process to which using volunteers to get the buckthorn out of the area specifically is inefficient unless you have a long-term plan. We can go in there, cut it out, it's gonna come back. And a lot of times it's gonna come back worse than it was before. So this plan is to keep the buckthorn out of this area for at least 10 years. So that's why the burn plans are, I think it's 1, and then 3 years after that, 3 years after that, et cetera. So the first project to go in and cut all the buckthorn is at least $10,000, and then you're talking anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 for every burn after that.
Okay, are there any questions by committee? I would say that it's in my district, and I know there's a lot of buckthorn there, and I appreciate your effort to try to address it. I think it's a very positive thing, and I thank everybody in the Bear Creek Preservation Foundation for that effort.
Motion to accept.
Okay,
Second.
we'll take a motion to return to the regular order by Alderman Weary, seconded by Alderman Vanderleest. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now, a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Alderman Nicholson, seconded by Alderman Vanderleest. All in favor of accepting the donation as proposed, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Number 2, consideration with possible action on the review of the Colburn Pool construction bids and budget. Well, we've been waiting for this, so let's get to it.
All right, so the journey continues with Colburn Pool, and in the next chapter here, I'm going to do a real broad overview of where we're at now. So Public Works bid out the construction of Colburn Pool last year. The low bid at the time came out to be $5,829,217. The price was significantly over budget, so 4 additional cheaper concepts were created. At the July 18th City Council meeting, the council approved the following motion. Approve Concept 4 to remodel the existing pool and bathhouse. To direct staff to hire a consultant to create the engineering bid documents. To bid out the construction of the pool. That the city was obligated to fund the total project costs minus private donations raised of at least $809,000. And the total budget for the project shall not exceed $5.5 million. Now, please note that the total budget included the construction costs, previous engineering fees from the last bid, current engineering fees for this bid, and future engineering fees for construction management, miscellaneous additional expenses, and a contingency. Concept 4 was to design and renovate a pool and bathhouse. So we're going to show you the concept up on the screen in a second here of what was proposed and approved to go to bid.
For the members of the committee, there is a copy of that in your packet.
So staff provided a summary of the concept that was approved. The pool configuration that you see here on the screen is concept 4. It would remain very similar to the existing pool configuration. There are 8 50-meter lap lanes for competitive swim. We have a deep well and a zero-depth entry that's new. Many of the pool walls and flooring are to remain intact except for a few areas. The existing pool was not a true 50-meter pool, so one of the walls needed to be replaced. The deep well and starting block areas have to be increased in depth to meet current codes. The deep well will have 1 diving board and 1 mini zipline feature. The area near the bathhouse will be converted to a zero-depth entrance with a few play features for children. A heavy-duty Murtha liner will be replaced over the concrete floor and walls. The pool wall liners will have a 30-year warranty, and the pool floor liner will have a 10-year warranty. All the existing pool mechanical systems will be removed and replaced, and all the concrete decking in the gutter system will be replaced. The bathhouse is also a renovation. So the 2 old-style open concept bathhouses, the open wings, will be removed and replaced with new enclosed bathroom wings. The central portion of the building will remain, but the interior layout will change to make it a more functional building. A concession stand will be added to the central portion, and the entire roof will be replaced. A new 46-stall parking lot and stormwater management area will be installed to the west of the existing pool. The new parking lot will be placed approximately 40 feet from the property line on the west side of the pool at Colburn. 13 new parking stalls will be added to the east side of the existing parking lot at the end, also towards the soccer fields. Staff was directed to remove many of the amenities included in the first concept to try to keep the costs down as minimal as possible. Items removed from the design to keep the budget down included a Four Seasons community room, a sand play area, the current channel, the climbing wall, the 25-yard lap lanes, the rentable open shelter, and the drop slide. In addition, the original bid was a new facility, not a renovated facility.
Just one thing to note, we're going to show you a few slides here, which are the renderings for the pool. So if you want to see what it's going to look like, especially the building, so you have a better idea of how that's designed, we'll show that. We'll just take 30 seconds to run through these slides. So this would be the front entrance to the pool now.
Sorry.
Get the extra handouts. Oh, let me start. I was wondering if we had an extra one.
Any extra notes? Is this one?
So again, these are all front entrance views of what the new bathhouse will look like. It's not much different from the existing one, other than the wings are going to be replaced. And then we're adding a bunch more windows in there just to open up the views a little bit better into the building. Here's a view of what the lobby will look like with the new front counter. This is a view from the pool manager's office looking out towards the pool. This is a rendering of the backside looking at the bathhouse from the pool. And shot a little further out. And what we're doing as an entrance into the pool is we're going to be putting in a garage door opening. So if you've been to Fisk or Resch Aquatic Center, you know that everyone is funneled through one small little door, which really isn't very convenient for park users. So what we were able to do is reconfigure the walls in the interior space a little bit more to provide a bigger opening. And when the pool's open, we'll just open up that garage door, and it'll be a nice open view from the lobby into the pool area. And then this is the view of the pool, and here's kind of an overview. And this is the last slide.
So with concept 4, we're asked for Public Works to bid out the new pool project again. This last go around, 2 companies submitted bids. The low bid was from Myron Construction for a base bid total of $5,671,000. So So this is $158,217 lower than the original bid, but the total project cost will be slightly higher than the last pool because the city hired the engineer for $183,000 to design the new pool. So a new current total budget, if the low bid is rewarded, would be the $5,600,000.
If you go to the third page of the packet I handed out, here's a breakdown of the budget and where the bids came in.
So yes, the new low bid, $5,671,000, which is the base bid. And then we have a 10% contingency, $567,100. The previous engineering expenses that were part of the total cost were $285,000. The current engineering expenses for the new concept were $183,000. The construction management for engineering is $95,000. And then we have miscellaneous expenses like permits, remediation of asbestos and fiber optic installation is around $80,000, for a total project cost of $6,881,100. So we also outlined in your packet there the current potential funding sources, which we have the $3.5 million from the previous city bonding. We have about $825,000 with current fundraising commitments. Because we would be possibly building this in the summer, Colburn Pool would be closed down in 2018, which would save us about $60,000. And the additional funding that we would need is about $2.5 million, $2,500,000, for a total funding of $6,885,000. So the Parks Department did include, just to make sure you guys are aware, we did include to add 2 alternates to the bid. One was to install the sand play area, and the other was to replace the concrete stairs leading to the basement with metal stairs. But due to the high cost of the bid, staff would not recommend awarding either alternate. Now, the Park Committee and City Council will now have to determine if they want to fund the rest of the project and award the bid, even though it is over budget. And if the bid is not rewarded, then we'd have to have some discussions. Would have to occur to determine what has to be done with the pool. So, just want to make a note that there might be possibly some additional work that needs to be done to the pool. It's 50-plus years old now, in order to open for the season, and these renovations are not currently budgeted for. One thing that is a big point in this is that staff, would like the City Council to keep in mind that we currently operate Colburn Pool with a net loss of $89,105, which is a recovery of 33%. Now, the new pool will have to have additional staff due to the concessions and will require additional lifeguards. So in order to maintain the current net loss, or the subsidized of $89,105 in our budget, the admissions to this new pool would have to increase 2.5 times to hit that $89,000 loss, to keep that the same, without adding any other expenses to our budget. That would be a recovery rate of 51% instead of the 33% in this new concept. So, under the worst case scenario, if we did not increase attendance and we did not, with this new pool, the admissions would not meet expectations and would mean very similar to that. We would have to add budget to our budget to make up for that difference. It would be approximately $35,000. So that's the overview of the current situation with Colburn Pool. Any questions?
Yeah, I'll ask one. I did talk with Dan about this a couple of days ago, and that a need to increase attendance by 2.5 times what it has been. That's a figure that we achieved with the Resch Pool when it opened. Is that right?
That is correct. The first couple of years, yes.
And we obviously know that attendance at Colburn has been depressed because there are other facilities that people go to and so on.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
okay, so just to put it into perspective. And obviously, we're building it for an increased attendance. That's something we definitely want, and whether it's swimming meets or other
Mhm.
purposes. So,
Yep.
okay, other questions by committee members?
Well, I'll just comment, I guess.
Yeah,
Mr.
Chris,
Chairman.
it's your
Thank you.
district.
Yeah, obviously, we've been working on it now for I don't know, 6 years, and we have the $1 million that we had originally committed because of the veto and the way things happened. We were fortunate to get the $830,000 back committed. A large portion was gone because the year-round room won't be there anymore, so that naming rights obviously fell. I would point out, if we don't move forward with the pool, obviously the previous engineering cost of $285,000 is already wasted, as I pointed out before the veto, but now you're going to waste another $200,000 in planning. So if you don't proceed with anything, you have $500,000 in money we've spent on engineering plans and not moving ahead with anything. I mean, that's the ultimate government wheels churning and spending money without doing anything. I would also point out that when we did the Rush Aquatic Center, I was involved with the fundraising for that, and we fundraised privately 1/7 of the cost, and this would be similar to that as well, 1/7 or 1/8. So I think the private sector did its part, certainly stepped up. There's a couple different ideas of things we could do, and I know we talked it over, whether the contingency should be 10% or lower it to 5 or 6 or 7. That's something we could talk about. I know being a renovation, sometimes you run into things that you don't expect, so that could be risky. The $285,000 for the previous engineering expenses, I really don't like that as part of this project, because this is really an entirely different project. And to add that on top of it makes this project look like it's way out of whack. And I understand it's all part of the overall scheme of Colburn, but I think we should separate that, maybe have a separate line item, put it, the vetoed pool cost or something like that, whatever you want to name it, but take it out of this expense, because that skews it entirely. So I'd be interested to see what the committee has to say, but I think we should move forward with it. Rebidding it, I don't think is going to help. It will probably go up in cost. We saw that the smaller pool options, really, their price was not much less at all, especially when you lose all your fundraised dollars, because there won't be any donations towards that. So I think it's time to act on it.
Okay. I would point out that in Alderman Weary's latest proposal, the fundraising is estimated at $830,000. In the staff recommendation, or staff report, it was $825. So is $830 where we're at?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll make that note. I don't think anybody's going to object to that. Okay. And one of the reasons why the fundraising is a little less than we had talked about initially is because we don't have a community room here. And initially there was a donor that was interested in naming rights for the community room, and there was like a $100,000 pledge for that. For not doing a community room, we don't have that pledge.
Fortunately, the Ho Chunk Nation did come back with a new pledge, but obviously wasn't as much. Bellin Health also pulled out, they recommitted their dollars. There were a few other donations who were a little upset with the process, shall we say.
Okay. And I presume that some of the amenities that we had in the original project, like climbing wall and things like that, could be added at a later date if the city chose to do that. Am I correct on that?
We could look into that.
So this is pretty much a bare bones pool. If we want to do it, this is what it's going to cost.
Yeah, in regards to your comments, we pulled out as pretty much as many of the amenities as we really could and still make it an Olympic-sized pool with a zero depth entry, which is what the neighborhood requested.
And that's part of the big driver in increasing attendance, is people wanted that zero depth entry, they wanted new facilities. With the Olympic length, we can host the 2 or 3 swim meets every year. So that was a big part of this too, was the economic part.
One other thing to note is the parking lot placement. Originally, in the original concept, we were going to basically double the size of the existing parking lot, but that would have meant replacing all the asphalt that's there. So one of the cost savings measures in this concept was to leave all of that in place and just build a new one somewhere else. So that's why we put a parking lot on the west end.
It coincidentally actually will help soccer and baseball there, because there are many times, I think, as you know, anybody who goes to that park, it's loaded, it's overflowing, people are parking all over on the grass, so this is going to actually help both those sports as well.
So in a nutshell, we're short about $2.5 million. It's up to you if you want to break up that into two separate projects in your bond request, one for the 285, which is the design work for the original pool, and then have the rest for this pool, or if you just want it as one line item.
Yeah. I think we've already paid the engineering cost out of the bonded funds
Correct.
that we had initially, so in any case, we have to have that amount of funds to complete the project.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chairman, we actually had, our main donor, Mr. Dowland, actually paid for that out of his donated funds. And so when the pool didn't go through, obviously there was some consternation about that, and then we refunded a lot of people their money and then go back out and recollect, the fundraising, which was a lot of work from the Friends Group again.
Okay, well, can we talk about the contingency a little? I know that when we did, if my memory serves me correctly, when we did the Joanne's pool, it was around 21% that was needed for contingency?
Yeah, so in regards to that, typically we like to see a 20% contingency, but in this situation, we felt that that was a little high, so we're recommending a 10. When you compare it to Resch Aquatic Center, which was also a renovation, typically in renovations, you have more change orders than new construction. I pulled out that information, and the change orders for that project was $493,000, which equated to a 22% contingency. That was a cheaper pool, but we had a lot of change orders. So staff is very hesitant to go anything under 10, and even 10 we feel is bare bones minimum with the contingency.
And if we don't have enough in the budget for contingency, then we have to deal with it all over again as the project is underway, is that?
During construction, we would have to deal with a shortage of funds and how we get emergency funding put into that account.
Okay, I guess my preference is that we budget for the contingency as the staff recommended it. And if for some reason we don't need all that contingency, the money won't be wasted. It would just be a surplus on the project at the end of it. But it would allow the project to proceed more smoothly. So that's my feeling. Comments from committee members?
Question, why is this over budgeted or $2 million? I see it on paper, but
The original estimate from the engineer was 5.5 million. That's why that, in the motion from the council from a year ago,
Right.
that it was capped at that amount, because that was the budget, and that included the contingency and all the design fees and that. We competitively bid it out. Only 2 companies bid. I can't really answer as to why their bids were so high. I do know that our consultant felt that the bids were higher than they should have been. But we don't have an answer to that. You would have to ask the contractors.
If I could, I think it's important to point out, Alderman Nicholson, what we approved last fall was, there was going to be additional bonding this spring. There was going to be $1.1 or $1.2 million. So we had planned on that already. So it really truly isn't $2.5 million over budget. It's about $1 million over budget.
Correct. We were originally going to cap it at 5.5, which meant we had to bond about 1.1 million.
So that was something we had approved already.
Correct. But now it's much higher. So.
I think the hope was that by redesigning this with the Murtha lining, that the bids would come in about $1 million less, and they did not. I guess what the reason is, anybody can speculate. Originally, we had 5 bidders on the first round, and now we only had 2. They are local contractors who
Right.
may not have had experience with this type of construction. So that may have entered into it, and construction costs may have gone up in that period of time. So whatever the reason, these are the facts that we have to deal with at this
Okay.
point. Are there people here who want to speak to the council on this issue? Okay, let's open the floor.
motion to open up the
Second.
floor for.
Motion by
interested
Alderman
parties.
Nicholson, seconded by Weary, to open the floor for citizen comments. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Kathy, come on forward, and if you could give them your name and address for the record.
Kathy LaFave, 1731 East Shore Circle. I was more involved in the fiscal pool. I helped with quite a bit. I did the fiscal pool plunge in February to help raise money for it. And I really believe in our pools, in our parks. And I think too, like Mary had mentioned about the parking lot, I don't think that should be in the cost of this because it's not actually all for the pool. A lot of that is going to be for the other amenities, because I've gone to the baseball games there too, and it's hard finding a place to park. It's a very overused park almost, at times. There's a lot of people using that park. It's a beautiful park, and I think this is actually a wonderful thing to do. And I'm going to bring this up. The council just voted to spend $900,000 to replace the decorative lights on the bridge. I mean, if you can waste money on decorative lights, which aren't needed, really, it's an added thing, it's fine, it's good, but if you can spend that kind of money, I think you could find money to help bring this in tuition. I think it's, the neighbors like the pool, and a lot of people do use it, the schools. I know the day camp, people come over, little kids. I've gone there too myself. And I think too that we could probably promote it enough that that this new pool, what you're going to add, it's going to add a lot to that community, that section. And I think you're probably going to get more people coming. And there's a lot of people who like a swimming pool versus a aquatic center. A lot of people don't go to the, I don't go to them. I don't want to be around all these kids jumping around, and it's great for kids. But there's a lot of adults who like something like this, who actually want to swim, want the laps and everything. And I think it's a good idea with the meets coming in. I think would help a lot too, and maybe that's something that you can promote a little bit more. We have a short season in the summer. It's too bad that we don't have enough money. I think more regionally or statewide and cover the thing. We could have state competitions. Something like that, but that's, I know, very expensive to do. But I like this plan. I think it's realistic. It's not over the top. I think this is something that I think a lot of people in the community would like.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Anyone else? Mr. Charles?
Couple of questions, just sitting back listening to this
Sure.
thing. Haven't been involved in it, but it always gets exciting when we're spending $6, $7, $8 million. Is the interest calculated into this?
No, it's not.
How much is the interest on the loan in this little
Well,
term?
the city would package this with other needs for bonding for other departments. There's public works, and we don't know yet, but I presume other departments have requests as well. And then we'd work through our bonding council and receive bids on that.
So it's an average rate.
Diana, do you have an idea what kind of rate we were looking at?
Yeah, we estimated 3% when we threw some numbers together.
Okay, so I mean, if I'm missing it, you got a big interest cost, your contingency cost. I don't know if you're allocating for the bottom replacement, but it's got a 10-year life and it's probably a pretty big chunk. How many people use this annually? Swimmers?
Well, our 2016 or 2017 numbers were around a little over 8,000. So we were at, like I said in the presentation, we were at a 33% recovery.
So have we done any calculations as to the cost per user? Even if you triple it to 24,000, $7 million, annual operating losses of 100 grand, if I was right. Just the operating losses alone is like, what, 100,000 over 20, that's $4 a head? So everybody goes swimming, you give them a $5 bill?
If we calculate this based on our past experience with Pool Lake Resh, where we get 2.5 times more, that's the hope. First, at least couple years, it might level off after that a little bit, but then we get to be more in the 51% recovery, which is actually similar to Joanne's.
Yep.
Currently.
Okay, well, thank you. I guess if I have an opinion, it's a very, very expensive piece for very little utilization, and I hope you find better use for $7 million.
Okay, thank you very much. Other comments? Mark?
Sure. Well, committee. I've been on this committee, Friends of the Colburn Pool, for a long time as well, so this has been a long, arduous process. I guess one of the thoughts I had is, you're talking about meets, the various meets, or a Special Olympics. I mean, there's a number of things that could be done to generate monies into this. Now, I guess one of the things is, when you have monies generated into the community, how much does the city benefit? You know, have you ever thought on something like that as far as outside activities coming in? What does the city see generally? Can a number be put on something like that, or is that just speculation?
I mean, they did pull up a number before. Before, the number that was thrown out was $400,000 for a city meet. I think that came from, the CVB, or the Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
One of those entities. They did a calculation based on a formula that they use for other
Right.
sporting events. And that's the number that they threw out there.
So the 400,000, that's total, that's the money that would come into the community?
That's what they said,
Right.
yes.
Now, the city of Green Bay itself, would it benefit for something like that? I mean, I know there's people spending money at hotels and food and things like that, so I guess I just wanted to see, I'm looking at an economic development benefit from something like this as well. I know we have a shortfall with the monies, but that would be one of my draws, to see if it could work. I'm still in support of the project. We'd have to get creative a little bit on bonding and such, but I still generally support the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, just to clarify where we're at here today, this is also on the committee agenda for improvement services later this evening. And what we would do, I guess, is make a recommendation as a park committee, both to improvement services and to the finance committee for bonding. Is that really where
Correct.
we're at?
Yeah, if you want to proceed with the pool, I would recommend making a motion to refer it to INS to award the bid, and then refer it to Finance Committee to add to the bond request, if that's what the committee chooses.
Other discussion?
Do we need to close the floor? Make a motion to close the floor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the floor. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Alderman Nichols.
I got a question. There was a figure by Ms. Charles that brought up $7 million. Is this project going to be $7 million?
Are you looking at what the city's portion would be?
Everything.
Um,
The interest on the bonding?
I think they're saying
I mean,
I can tell you
everything.
what the 2016 borrowing was.
Pardon? I'm sorry.
The 2016 borrowing was 3.5 million, and the actual interest and issuance cost brought it up to 4.6 million, or basically 1.1 million in interest and issuance costs. So we're up to 4.6, and then a projection, if we were to bond an additional 2.5 million, as stated on Dan's sheet, that would incur another about $827,000 worth of interest. So that borrowing would be another 3.3. So the net of those two together would be 7.9 million, almost 8 million for the city's share. And that does not take into consideration your annual ongoing operating costs.
And what is that estimated at?
Well, ideally, we hope to get, like I said, 2.5 more times attendance there
Right.
with new programming. And so you're looking at,
That's to break even? 2.5 times?
that's to get to a 51% cost recovery. So we'd still be subsidizing by 49%.
49%.
In other words, not to lose any more than what we have been on the
Right.
existing.
What would that be roughly?
Well, our revenue would be around $94,770 per year.
Okay.
Our
And then-
expenses would be
yeah.
at $186,475.
So a difference of?
Difference of $91,705. 30
Okay.
cents.
Okay, other questions?
Not at this time, no?
Alderman Weir.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, we've debated and discussed this over the past 4 or 6 years, and people have presented a lot of data information on the swim meets and what it would mean to communities. So it's a bigger picture than maybe what was painted. It's no secret parks in general don't make money unless you're Bay Beach, and we're very lucky to have that. Parks don't generate money, that's not what they're there for. So to bring that up is really, I think, a sad diversion. It's an important point to look at, but you have to look at how much the community has rallied around this and how much money they've raised. It was $1 million. They really wanted this to go through. And if we had built this back a couple of years ago, it would have been cheaper. All the delays and the hemming and hawing and the pool that was going to be built at Tundra Lodge caused unnecessary, unneeded delays. So I think we should, we're replacing infrastructure. It's been here 50 years. Simply replacing that infrastructure. And when you take off the 800 and some thousand, really we're looking at about 6 million. And like I said before, 285,000 of that I think should be in a separate line item. Because this current project, you know, that veto's all on the mayor. That extra $300,000 in cost comes directly from his office, not this project. So.
Well, we've been struggling with this for several years, as everyone knows, and costs keep going up, and we did have a lot of citizens raise funds. Much of it is small contributions, but you know, there are some larger ones as well. And we did look at other options, including a smaller pool, a recreation building to have other activities instead of a pool. And basically the citizen comments were that people didn't like any of the other alternatives, any of the options. So that's how we came back with this. And you know, it isn't a Cadillac by any means, but if the council wants to stay with a 50-meter pool at Colburn, and it's the only one we have in the city, this is the best we're going to do, I think.
County. I'd make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, go ahead.
Seeing as though we already have $3.5 million in the bank that have been waiting for this project to move forward, I'm going to make a motion at 2.110, so $2,110,100 be recommended to bond towards the Colburn pool remodel. That's taking out, you know, the second motion would be $285,000 be towards engineering expenses, or whatever you want to put label on it, but it's not part of this remodel.
Just so I'm clear, because my quick math is $2,215,000 off of 2.5. So where's the extra? Are you also?
Well, you had 2.496100 is what was.
But you're using a contingency to 6%.
Nope, I was using 10%. Yeah, I'm using your chart.
Okay.
Total 2.496100. If you just take out the 285,000, yeah, 2210. Yeah, I missed a one.
Dave.
So you're right.
Dave. So the motion would be a total amount of bonding of $2,496,100. No, actually, it would be $2,491,100.
Oh, right.
It's 2.2, right?
5,000.
That's right.
$2,491,100, including $285,000. Well, we've already paid for that $285,000, so the total amount of bonding we would recommend would be $2,491,100.
Yep, I'm just separating it. 2,205,100 is for Colburn Pool Remodel Project. $285,000, you can label it whatever you want, engineering expenses, you can call it the veto engineering expenses, get creative with it, I don't care. Call it the mayor veto, whatever you want, but it's a separate line item. Bond for it, obviously we paid for it, but people need to know where that's coming from. It's not part of this project, and it's not what the majority of the council wanted, was to spend so much money on engineering. It's crazy. Alderman, before I put that motion in, Alderman.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a statement from Kathy. with that decorative lighting, for the record, I did not support that. I thought that money should have went to our roads, where everybody uses it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, okay.
So I'll submit that motion.
We can verify this number, but what we're coming up with is $2,206,100.
Okay.
So we'll verify that and make sure, we'll adjust that if we need to, but that's the number that we're coming up with. And then the $285,000 also for bonding, but underneath a separate line item.
Yep.
And then does your motion also refer to INS to
Yes.
award the bid?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, as long as everybody understands, we're really bonding for the whole amount. And
Yeah.
With a
Ultimately.
separation of where the money is on a separate line item. Something like that.
I don't think you could, in selling the bond issue, I don't think you could account for it separately, but we can certainly record that in the minutes of
think it's
our
important.
meeting, that there was that amount of cost for the first engineering, and that the current project cost would be, whatever the figure is. Would that be acceptable?
If that's the way we need to do it, that's fine. I think it just needs to be known in the public that the $300,000 was because of a veto. The pool would be built right now.
Yeah.
It'd be built already.
Okay. Okay, everybody clear on what that would be, what the motion would be?
That's the motion, and then also to refer to INS for.
Basically,
Yes.
yep.
Okay, is there a second? Second? I'll second it. Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay. Nay.
Okay, the motion fails on a tie vote. Could we refer the issue to either the council or the finance committee for consideration?
Okay.
Okay, motion by Alderman Nicholson.
So it's gonna go to finance now?
What would be appropriate to refer
At
to the
this,
finance?
at this point, I think it would make the most sense just to refer it to council for discussion.
That's what I was
Council's floor.
thinking.
Okay. Refer to the council without a recommendation.
All right.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Nicholson, seconded by Alderman Vanderleest to refer the issue to the council without a recommendation. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, thank you. Okay, third item is consideration of possible action on a presentation of the Bay Beach, Sand Beach, Pier, Boardwalk, and Bathhouse concept and budget. Dan, you want to lead us on this?
Yes, I will. So this project has been in the works since 2007, when the Bay Beach Master Plan was completed. One of the top comments from the public at the time was to bring the beach back to Bay Beach. So for many years, you couldn't even see the beach with the phragmites there, and people wanted to interact with the waterway. There's currently no swimming beaches anywhere near Green Bay, and the majority of the public has been very vocal that this is something they want in our community. In addition to that, one other item that was in the master plan too was a pier that goes out, a long 400-foot pier. So that was also in the master plan. So it wasn't just interacting with the water, it was viewing the wildlife, fishing off the pier. It was kind of the whole package of let's interact with the waterway. So as you remember, last fall, the city received $250,000 in grant funding to hire a consultant to create engineering bid documents and apply for all DNR permits necessary to install a sand beach, a wildlife viewing platform, which is the pier, boardwalk, and a bathhouse with restrooms. So the city did hire Patrick Engineering, and over the last 9 months or so, our consultant has worked very closely with park staff and the DNR, and also Bay Beach Amusement Park staff, to develop a design that will provide adequate public access and meet our master plan goals, and still keep the best natural wildlife habitat intact. We do have our consultant from Patrick Engineering here to give you a brief presentation. His name is Roland Haslett. So if you want to come up, he'll just kind of give you a summary of the beach concept and what we actually applied for the permits for.
Thank you,
Thank
committee. So I'd like to begin with the aerial views that you have in your handout and also on the screens. And basically what you're looking at is the park itself, Bay Beach Amusement Park. Bay Beach, of course, made a lot of sense a long time ago when there was a beach, and that beach actually was a natural sand beach that almost went to the pavilion, roughly speaking. In the 70s, there was a revetment built, which is where there's a current walkway on the north side of the park itself. That revetment basically was a flood control revetment, and by doing that, it raised the elevation of the walkway and really closed off the view of the water, and it closed off access to the water. So what you have right now is no beach at Bay Beach. Next slide. What I'd like to talk about is what the proposal is and what we submitted to the Department of Natural Resources for permitting. And what you see in this first slide is really the overall view of what's happening, what we've proposed. The Bay of Green Bay fluctuates in water elevation by approximately 3 feet at any given year. There's high water and there's low water, and we've seen that who's ever lived here. So this first graphic, where you see the sand beach, if you will, indicates what it would look like at high water. This is at historic high water. And next to that is the fishing and viewing platform that Dan had mentioned. And in the dark color along there is a renovated boardwalk. That boardwalk would separate, provide viewing, but it would separate the beach from the rest of the park. Next slide. And as you see in the next graphic, that's the difference of what this proposal would look like in normal water. The beach is much larger because of the lower water elevation. We are proposing to bring in several feet of sand to build this up. Next slide, please. And the little graphic in the top left kind of indicates what you're looking at. You have a 16-foot wide boardwalk, which is almost the exact width of the existing walkway on top of the revetment right now. Next to that, on the left side of that top left graphic, would be a retaining wall. That retaining wall would basically just provide that separation. A minor 1.5 to 2.5 foot drop to provide a separation. A 17-foot native vegetation area adjacent to that. And then the below graphic really shows kind of a cross-sectional view at high water. You would have approximately at all times a 30-foot dry beach at Bay Beach with that vegetative area and then the boardwalk. Next slide, please. And as you can see, in normal water conditions, normal elevations, the beach grows to approximately 100 feet of dry beach. A lot of engineering actually goes into this. There's a couple things we're looking at, not only having a beach that is wide enough and across the Bay Beach area, and also having a dry beach during high and low waters or normal waters, but there is a lot of engineering that goes into this with respect to how we're going to stabilize the sand. It's important to stabilize the sand so that we don't deposit new sand and then have it washed out and so forth. This is not to get too technical, but it's a low energy area at the south side of the bay. The elevations are designed such that, and the contours are designed such that it matches the existing energy grade lines, and that's why this particular cross-section works perfectly. Next slide, please. I'll get into a little bit more of the details of what we're proposing besides just the sand beach itself. What you see again is that normal water elevation, the dry beach, if you will. On the left side of the viewing platform will be a natural area. Let me step back for a moment here. One of the most important parts is access to the water. Right now, there really isn't access to the water. Next click here, please. What we intend to propose is a number of staircases that will step down from the boardwalk to the sand beach itself. There's also a proposed accessible ramp for Americans with disabilities. That would be kind of a grand entrance, if you will, and provide access also to the sand beach. Next click, please. We have the natural area, which is a viewing area to the west side of the proposed viewing platform. On the far eastern side, we're going to finish off the beach so that we kind of protect it from, we want users to stay at the Bay Beach area. We want to provide a natural habitat on the eastern edge as well. So we really border this with a natural environment on the east and west sides. as well as the natural environment buffering between the boardwalk and the sand itself. Excellent. The viewing platform is proposed to be approximately 450 feet from the shoreline, from the boardwalk, out into the water with a TN treatment. That TN treatment is really meant for not only viewing, of course, but fishing as well, and will provide, again, accessible type fishing railings in that area. It's important to get out to a certain depth of water for proper fishing and viewing. That's why the length of this is really proposed at 450 feet. In normal water, you might get 4 or 5 feet of water. At high water, you might get 6 or 8 feet of water. So it's important to get to a certain distance. There are 3 areas that are proposed, little scallops, if you will, on the sides of this for viewing purposes. So you get off the main walkway, if you will. You can stand and take photos, paintings, sunsets, sunrises, viewing of the habitat and so forth. The proposed width of that is 16 feet for the stem of this. Next slide. And the bathhouse is the other element that's being proposed as part of the overall master plan. The bathhouse is important, obviously, for changing access to the facilities nearby, perhaps concessions that could be sold as well. And then the slide. In addition to that, this is a separate project, but there is a giant wheel. It's a big wheel. It's a giant wheel is going to be constructed, and we propose this as close to the waterway as we can, really to enhance the experience when you're on the giant wheel, to really appreciate the water and, again, at the access and the viewing of the water. So we brought it as close as possible to the waterway, and the location is as shown. Again, that's an independent, separate project, but this is how it ties into the overall master plan. And next slide. And then eventually, of course, there will need to be walkways that are finished off to connect these different areas, and that's part of the overall master plan, which matches the master plan that's been prepared for some time now. What I'd like to do in this last slide here just really gives you a representation a little further out. It indicates sort of what we call the peninsula area, the viewing natural habitat area to the west, which, over time can be enhanced working with other parties and other interested stakeholders. That's a future plan. That's certainly a native and wildlife area now. And it shows just a tip of Renard Island up there, really just to give you a full appreciation of what we're proposing for this project. In conclusion, we have submitted this to the Department of Natural Resources and Corps of Engineers for permits. We will be concluding the 30-day public comment period at the end of this week, and they have 30 days to issue their determination. And at this point, we've been given notice that they've issued an intent to issue a permit, but they wanted to wait through public comment period, reviewed our details, but the intent would be to issue a permit. Dan, did I miss anything in the?
No, I think you summed it up fairly well. I guess I just want to kind of add to what our consultant mentioned. So one thing that we looked at was ongoing maintenance costs associated with this project. So this project will not have extensive maintenance. It kind of, once you build it, it's kind of there, but there will be some maintenance costs that we will have to address. So typically, most other beach communities spend about $3,500 per year to continue with water testing on a weekly, daily basis type thing. On average, most communities test about 2 times per week. We can choose to do more or less, whatever we see fit. We would probably do more than that, but we feel $3,500 would be what we'd be looking at to do that testing. And what they'd be testing for is E. coli and algae blooms, which happen periodically. So algae blooms are more prevalent from August through October, not necessarily so much in the beginning of the years, or the beginning of the swimming season. Most other beaches along Lake Michigan have similar issues. So they deal with E. coli, they deal with algae blooms. It happens, and when that happens, it's just a matter of making sure you notify the public accordingly, and you close the beach down in those instances. So, we expect that will happen periodically here at Bay Beach. In fact, it will happen yearly, probably several times a year. But it's not much different than other beaches throughout the state. The nice thing about this beach compared to other beaches is we have staff here throughout the entire summer months. So if we do close the beach down, we have staff who can monitor that and talk to people who are still out there using it. So that's one advantage we have compared to other beaches that don't. We have been working closely with the DNR on what our monitoring plan is going to be, and also our, how we notify the public. So by the time we open the beach, that plan will be in place. And, you know, right now, the DNR is supportive of moving ahead with this project. Last time I spoke to them. As far as other maintenance costs, the sand will be groomed a minimum of twice per week. Some communities do it daily and others do it once per week. In addition, the restroom and showers will have to be cleaned on a daily basis, and the garbage will be picked up on a daily basis. We're assuming it'll take about 30 hours of labor per week to do this maintenance on the beach area. And it's mainly the grooming of the sand and cleaning the bathrooms. Cleaning of the bathrooms is really the thing that takes the most time. As far as how much that equates to, we plan on using existing staff to do the maintenance. We feel that we can adequately accomplish that with the staff that we have. On a revenue side, we typically do see an average of 3% increase in revenue in tickets and concessions every time we add a major attraction to the park. So using this formula, we're able to calculate the additional revenue on the other rides and the park in general using that formula. So the additional ticket revenue plus the increase in concessions would increase the net profit at Bay Beach by about $61,000. And for budgeting purposes, we estimate that each person at Bay Beach rides 4 rides. So this increase in ridership revenue would then equate to an increase of nearly 26,000 people per year at the park, which could be attributed to adding the beach. We actually feel that there'll be quite a few more people than that using the beach. It's just that's the formula we use whenever we do a new major attraction. So we were trying to stick with a standard formula for calculating out profits and number of users. If you want to equate the amount of labor costs that the 30 hours of labor equals, that's roughly about $10,000 to $11,000. So if we bring in $61,000, the labor is about $10,000 or $11,000, $3,500 in testing. Bay Beach would still see a net profit from the increase of people at Bay Beach. So what we're asking right now is we're asking that the Park Committee and City Council make this project a priority and go forward with approving a funding strategy and move ahead with the project. It's likely that by the time the City Council votes on the bond request at the end of March, we will have the permits in hand. We should know at the end of March with a definite yes or no. The consultant has estimated this project would cost $5 million. What staff is proposing is that the city funds 60% of that cost through bonding, and then the remaining $2 million would be a combination of grants and fundraising. So we feel that there's a lot of opportunities out there for grants, and we would be very successful getting grants for this. The mayor has committed to beginning a fundraising campaign shortly after the DNR permits are approved. So that's who would handle the fundraising effort. So if the bonding is approved and we do move forward with the project, what staff would recommend is that the funding that's approved for the bonding the payments for it come out of the general bond or the general accounts, not using Bay Beach revenue to pay off that bond. So that would be our recommendation as a staff. So that being said, that's our presentation. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. I don't know if there's anyone from the public who would like to speak on this.
Yeah, I guess this is something we've talked about for a lot of years, and there's been a lot of citizen interest in reestablishing a beach at Bay Beach. And, it was just kind of a question of when do we get there where the environmental conditions are such that we can do it and make it work. And I think the answer from studies is that, yes, it is feasible.
Absolutely.
Would the sand come from when they dredge on the outer bay like they did with Cat Island, or where would the sand have to be hauled in, or how would that work?
Yeah, as part of the permit application, that was asked the question where we'd get it. We would look for a source, a pit or something initially. Certainly in discussions with the county who's doing the dredging of that. But the important part is whatever's being dredged has to be tested. If it's from a pit, they don't require chemical testing and so forth. If it's from the dredge material, of course, we'd have to do sampling and testing on a regular basis to do that. So at this point, we haven't concluded where it would come from, other than we do need it. It's going to be a source that we bring it. And my estimate included a source from a pit or a local source.
Okay.
As opposed to perhaps what it would be, which could be certainly less expensive from the dredging.
Okay, other questions from the committee before we open the floor? Okay, I think there are people here who want to speak.
Motion to open up the floor.
Motion by Alderman
Interested
Nicholson,
parties.
second by Alderman Van Leeuwen to open the floor for interested parties. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are open. If you'd like to
I don't know if I
speak.
have to go to the point. I just have a question. What is the timeline on this? If there's, I know you guys have to go through the city council process, but what is the timeline in hopes to actually start the construction on this project?
Well, there has to be some,
But I get a name and address.
yeah, there has to be some fundraising, but can you answer?
Yeah, I guess, just for the record, can you give your name and address?
I'm with the media.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really comes down to funding. So once we have the permits in hand, our consultant is going to begin the construction documents so that it's basically shovel-ready as soon as the funding is in place. So a lot of the timeline depends on whether or not the city council is supportive of this project and wants to move ahead with bonding for it. That's part of it. And then the other part is when we can apply for the grants and successfully complete fundraising. Most of the grant cycles are fall grant cycles, so that's when we would be applying for the grants. In an ideal world, we would see some construction happen next year on this project if all of the funding falls into place.
But you can't start the construction without the funding. Maybe
Correct.
majority of the generated funds, you would want to specifically start the project once all the funds are in place.
Correct. We need the funding in place before we can bid this out for construction.
Yeah, I think we're talking about 2019 at the earliest, maybe 2020, right?
Correct.
For construction to start.
Correct.
Great. Yeah, before we'd be in a position to do anything. Other comments? Yes, Kathy?
As you know, my address, 1731 East Shore Circle. I'm 3 houses from Bay Beach.
How does the
And-
neighborhood
and
feel about it?
Yeah, well, I love Bay Beach. I love the park. And I've been, I'll give you a little background. We bought our house in 1971. And in 73, we went through the big flood. And we didn't have a dike then. And I saw the damage that flood did. It took out huge sections of our backyard. It threw stones this big, 50 feet into our backyard. I mean, it was a huge undertaking, and we had, literally, we're peeling off dried mud off our lawn, which we shouldn't have been doing, but it probably was full of PCBs. DNR never said anything. But, get back, okay. So that was in 73. So I know the fluctuations on this bay is not very pretty. And I also know that on this bay, you have sandbars, they'll be there, and months later, you won't find the sandbar. It's constantly shifting too. So you're gonna have a lot, I think you're gonna do a lot more than twice a week fixing that sand because the way the bay moves. And I know you're a little bit more protected, and the Kinney Island has helped protecting some of the wave action and everything. And then in 1973, I was appointed to the Citizen Park Board, and we were talking about bringing swimming back at Bay Beach. You know, it's been talked about a long, long time. And in 1985, this council, in their right wisdom, abolished the Citizen Park Board because they could do better. Bay Beach sat there for how many years with nothing going on. I kept asking them, you're losing money, put rides in it because they make so much money. So then we go on to the present. And right now, the bay is up again. But we used to have 7 years and 7 up about. You could see it go out and up and down. But now it's not normal anymore. It's coming up. We don't know how much more. I think they were predicting it might even come up a little bit more. But one thing that I just got today from Bill Haves from New Water, there's a new study being conducted by the DNR, and New Water's going to also work with them, and it's also UW Milwaukee Zilber, ZILBR School of Public Health. Their focus is on the toxins near Bay Beach. And the report is from February 2018. The study is titled Assessing Cyanobacteria, Cyanobacteria, harmful algal blooms in the lower bay. When I read the study, I really got very concerned. I don't know if we're going to be able to have swimming here. The cyanobacteria is the blue-green algae. They said it's existed in millennia, but it thrives in warmer temperatures, even in absence of nutrients like phosphorus. They went out and they did a scum collection, the surface of one of these blooms, on September 13th, 2017. It was 4,000 milligrams per liter. EPA says micrograms. 4 micrograms are acceptable. They had 4,000. The World Health Organization's drinking water quality has 1. The blooms and the toxins come in and out rapid basis. It's highly variable in space and time. You never know when it's going to happen. It's present throughout the bay. It tends to be more concentrated in shallow waters and closer to shoreline. We have a lot of shallow water in this area especially. Shallow water encourages stagnation, and warmer summer temps are ideal for conditions for this bacteria to grow. When I read all this, I thought, this doesn't sound good. I think also, if you remember, Winnebago's been having a lot of problems, I think, with the same thing. So this is something that they're ongoing. They're hoping to, they're hoping to be done in next year on their study. And I think this is something that maybe the committee and the park, department needs to be aware. They should contact. You can contact Bill Haves, it's HAFS at New Water, to get more information. I was looking forward to a beach. I know I can't have one in front of my house. So I was going to take my chair and I'd just go sit over there. I don't know if I'd swim in the water, but I'd go sit over there because I thought that'd be great. But I don't know if you want to go through a beach, and if you're telling people, well, we can't swim, I don't know if you can swim in the water because of this bacteria, you're going to have to test hourly, according, maybe for what they're finding in the study. It just changes constantly. And another thing, he talked about the spit of land, or no, he talked about on that side of wildlife thing, and that spit of land between the dike and the island, that's all from the river. There's a lot of contamination in there. It's never been tested. It's probably full of PCBs. So I don't think you want anybody over in that area. I know we got hunters in there, which I wouldn't recommend being in there. There's about 15 acres that is built up in between. Now, it has kept a lot of the stuff coming out of the river to go into our area. But when they did Kinney Island and that, they would not do the lower bay, our area all the way around, because it would have been cost prohibitive for the PCBs that are in there. So there are things to think about. I would like to see a beach. I'd like to see swimming, but I don't know if it's possible. I just wanted to bring this forward, that people are aware of what's happening.
Kathy, what was the name of that bacteria again?
It's CYANO bacteria.
Cyanobacteria.
Yeah, bacteria, or otherwise blue-green algae. And children and dogs are more susceptible because they tend to swallow water, but it also can cause skin irritation. Some nasty stuff. And unfortunately, it's also because I think our temperatures are changing. Our summers are getting hotter, and that's another thing that's contributing to this problem. You're seeing it a lot more than we used to.
Okay, thank you for the input. Others? Come on forward.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Bartlett. I'm at 2625 University Avenue. I want to thank Kathy for bringing that forward. I have been studying cyanobacteria and their toxins in Green Bay for the last couple years. I am a PhD student at UW Milwaukee as well. I work with Dr. Todd Miller, who is the principal investigator along with the DNR on that study that she just talked about. And I just wanted to, I would love to see Bay Beach revitalized. I love the idea of a pier, and I think it would be great, but I'm concerned that we're not done with our study yet. And these toxins, they do come and go, and they do kind of pile up along the shoreline where it's a lot shallower. And yes, you're right, the toxins, they're going to be more prevalent and at higher concentrations August through October, but you just put sand down and you're not monitoring, and dogs and children are more susceptible because the bacteria is able to kind of form these blooms, and it's going to be that pea soup layer on top of the water. That is called a scum sample. Scum samples have more toxins in them than if the water is dispersed up and down. And these cyanobacteria, they can float up and down, and so their toxicity is going to change throughout the course of the day. But in September, when that sample was taken, the water was green, but it wasn't that green. There were still people jet skiing and stuff. But what if you were down there with your child and they ingested that water? A child needs less than 4 micrograms per liter, which is the EPA standard, to become ill. Dogs, there's been several cases of dog deaths in Wisconsin, and I think we need to take pause, and we need to wait. Let us finish this study, and so we can kind of get an idea, can we monitor for these toxins better? Because the reason why it's so difficult for us to say what the toxins are like in Green Bay is lakes are different. Every lake has a different setup, and even though people have been studying cyanobacteria for years, even in Madison, those 4 connected lakes, they have different compositions for their toxins, their species that are producing them, and so we need time to finish this before we can come up with a good monitoring program. Twice a week is not enough when we know that they vary on such an hourly scale, and in addition, I think it's not good looking at E. coli twice a week either. Milwaukee, with their urban beaches, they sample 5 days a week, and I think as part of the EPA beach monitoring program, if funds do come from that, I think most beaches are sampled 5 days a week. Don't quote me on that one, but I did participate with the urban beach monitoring program at Milwaukee, so I have a little bit of history with that one. But I just wanted to bring forth my concerns that we really need to consider this toxin and our children and our pets. I love the pier. I love the fact that we are revitalizing Bay Beach, but I'm not sure. You should ask yourselves, would you let your child or your grandchild swim there when this water is at pea green soup? Sure, you can put up signs, but I think we need to make sure that the right message is getting out there.
Okay, thank you. Others? Come forward.
I'm Angela Kowalczyk Adrians. I'm with Bay Lake Regional Planning Commission. We're at 425 South Adams Street. So we were part of some of the work that removed the Phragmites and looking at some of the early preliminary testing to find out if it was feasible to have a beach at Bay Beach. And although there are concerns with the cyanobacteria during certain times of the year, I'm in support of this project because this is a great underutilized piece of property. And so many of the other cities that have access to Lake Michigan have really great opportunities to get to the water, and we have nothing here in Green Bay. And I think there's a way that you could have the beach and the pier and a great boardwalk while still protecting the public through messaging and in signage to let them know the concerns during certain times of the year. but not to totally take away having access to the beach. In other cities, even on Lake Erie where they manage or they deal with cyanobacteria, they still have beaches. They wouldn't propose just closing off their beaches and not having the beach. So I think that we can still have a beach while still working towards improvements in water quality and protecting public health. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Charles, did you have comments?
Here, I brought you. You had asked about that. I think there's 4 sets, one for each of you.
Thank you.
There's 2 memos there that talk about what they've all been talking about. Today, I'm just representing the Friends of Bay Beach. And we think this is an absolutely wonderful project. We are in full favor of it. But we want to make sure we make a record and have a clear understanding going forward of what the intentions are in all of this. And then at the end, I'd like to touch base on our opinion of this new kind of problem that just popped up in the piece. But anyway, if you look at the project in total, it's roughly $5 million. We would like to see a contingency put into that of $500,000. I think that's a prudent thing based on history. And so if you're going to do it with enough money to cover it, but that's, purely up to council and to your recommendation. And the other piece of it that is concerning is maybe there's a way to meet everybody's need and wait for this study and take a look at it by separating out the beach until the last piece. We do the boardwalk, we do the houses, we do all the stuff, and maybe put that piece in last. Certainly recommend going ahead with the bonding, get that put in place. I want to again clarify on the record, our understanding of this is a city contribution to Bay Beach, which operates under a, give me the number?
410.
Huh? 410?
Yeah.
Which operates under a 410, so that none of the money from Bay Beach can be taken to pay off the bond or to pay for shortages or to pay for things in this project, because we're moving this project ahead about 7, 8, 10 years from its original design and the concept. And so, we just don't want to goof everything up that's been put in the plan, but we think it's great. If we can move it ahead, it's a good investment for the city. It's a good investment for the citizens, but we want to clarify that for the 5-year period, while the Ferris wheel is being installed and put in. And by the way, it's looking beautiful. It's coming together. We're doing paint colors. Final designs are finished, and it's all paid for, so it won't cost anybody a dime. But anyway, it's coming along nice. We wanted to clarify that and then just talk about this problem which sort of popped up. There are some concerns personally and by our board about how do we control the swimming. The concept of having that beach, I think, is a great idea if you can prevent people from going in the water if things are bad. And I do believe, it's significant. I've lived on the bay all my life. My great-grandfather homesteaded here. And the algae in the shallow water at first I was concerned about PCBs, and I was totally opposed to it, and then I've satisfied that water record. But this thing has come up, and I think it's a real issue. And I don't know, Dan, or how you could do that, but I would certainly like to see something that says you don't finalize the beach portion until the survey's done and everybody's got a good plan. Because studying it's difficult. We talked about 3,500, which is a good number but you got to check it every day, and it takes 24 hours for the testing to come through, so you do have a day lag. And I don't even know if we've ever done any numbers to see where we're at in June or July. I don't know. It's just, we all got kids, and I hope we're not going to have too many pets on the beach, but is there a plan for that?
Pets are not allowed
In the
at
park?
Bay Beach amusement park.
Okay, well, then that's good. Then we won't make any pets sick if they drink the water. But the kids, so anyway, the recommendation from us is that you go ahead with the bonding. You've got 2 other pieces in the fundraising, and the beach itself's about $1 million. So if you could push that back does that screw up the construction schedule if you put that to the back end waiting for the numbers, or?
There would be some logistical issues we'd have to address, because you've got the area to the west is actually part of the sand fill because it levels out the energy grade lines. If you don't complete the area which we've proposed exactly, and we've done longitudinal and transverse calculations, that area blends in perfectly. So if you don't do that, if you don't build all of it, you get eddies and you get currents and you get different things that happen from an energy gradient standpoint, and that starts to take the sand and move it. So we don't want to deposit sand, creating new wave actions and eddies and so forth that would change the dynamics. So it spent considerable amount of time with the energy, and it's I would consider an optimum design. So if you don't build all of that, you should not build any of that, as far as the saying goes, until you're ready. The issue would be kind of working underneath the pier, if the pier's first. So there's logistical issues we would have to address.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, if we can get the pier and the boardwalk and all that stuff moving, they're great. Even the bathhouse, God forbid something happens where you can't swim and you decide not to do the beach, you can use that. We're short of restrooms, we're short of facilities, it's a very usable piece. And keep in mind, on top of all this, we still got, the beach is gonna have to do the parking and those upgrades, which is, another $750,000, I'm sure, by the time we're done. But that's in that budget, and it'll be taken care of there. We just wanna make sure we don't damage the reputation of one of the finest properties the city owns. I mean, it's gold-plated, it's gorgeous. So if we can say, let's go ahead and maybe wait till we hit some standard of agreement on that before signing off on the beach piece of it, that would certainly ease some of the, and if a year from now, everybody says, okay, do it, or we come up with a plan. At one time, there was talk of a beach that you couldn't swim, it was just to play on and to have fires and to, place for people to gather. Maybe that plan has to be revised a little bit should the testing come back poor. But that's just the big concern. So anyway, I hope you'll go ahead, approve the funding. I hope we can get some commitment to look at the testing before the beach piece of it's implemented. My understanding is, again, none of this happens until we have money in hand. So the bonding will allow $3 million worth of work to go forward, which would get us boardwalk, pier, whatever we wanted to prioritize. And then grants, Dan's said he's pretty comfortable he can raise $1 million. That's a great thing, and I have great faith that he can do it. And then the last $1 million, which is kind of the beach cost, if we get the fundraising and the testing comes back to everybody's satisfaction, then we go ahead and sign off on that last little piece. Does that sort of screw you up, Dan, or is that?
No, I think that we can work around that. Truthfully, it takes time to do the grants and the fundraising anyway, so that allows us some time to do some additional research on the cyanobacteria. As I stated before, it happens at many, many beaches. It's not exclusive to Bay Beach, and I just want everyone to be aware of that. But
it's been around for a long time. The only difference is Lake Michigan has a big tidal churn, so they get to flush that water. The lower bay is a little trapped, and they just don't have as much water flushing to take place, so it's tougher. And it's not that I wouldn't want to spend the money and not being able to swim, as long as you could use it for something else, but I really, really am concerned that we've got the safety put in place before because once you build the beach, they're going to use it. I mean, like it or not, and I got grandkids, and they're going to go in the water. And I live in Dykesville, and after reading this, I'm going, you know what? I think we ought to get together with the neighbors and do a little testing there and just see what we've got. Because to be honest, we jet ski through this stuff too. And anyway, I've taken up more time than probably deserve.
In terms of the parking issue that Mr. Charles talked about, we do have a master plan, as I understand it, that shows some expansion of the parking, and that's something we have to be aware of, because
it
obviously
won't come back on you guys. The beach will pay for that parking.
Right.
It's in the 20-year plan, and I just want to make sure. My big concern is all the revenue the beach makes for the next 5 to 10 years is already spent.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do one of these double spend deals where, you know, we've got all these commitments and then all of a sudden somebody comes back and says, well, you got bond payments on this.
Right. Well, the.
I mean, because we got the coaster payments for another 3-4 years too.
Sure. The minimal amount of maintenance that Dan talked about, do you have any problem with that coming out of
No,
the Bay
that's,
Beach revenues?
the beach revenue should increase enough with this as a new attraction to cover it. And to be honest, I think we're gonna be very pleased with what the wheel does, so, you know, these were all part of the plan. This is nothing new or different. It's part of the plan. It's well-funded. It's well thought through. It's a good investment. It's being moved ahead, you know, because that's what everybody wants to do. But reality is I'd like to see you move with it. Just slow this last little piece up and caution it a bit. And
With a little bit of caution. It looks like part of it really has to occur before the wheel can be installed there. Am I reading that right?
No, the wheel can be installed independently of the beach and pier. We will have to build the portion south, but the portion north into the waterway, that can be done after the fact.
And the south part isn't swimming beach anyway.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that green piece is there, and you know, and again, I don't want to kill it. I just want to push it to the end of the project so that we make sure we got water quality numbers that are good enough. Because maybe you got to change it. Who knows? You know what you got to do. Keep using it. It's a good thing. But anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate the input. Anyone else want to speak to the committee?
Something else.
Kathy?
Oh, you mentioned about parking. Yeah, make sure you get plenty of parking in there because I don't want my street constantly parked up. We have sometimes with Bay Beach and with the wildlife sanctuary, don't mind. But people are very considerate. They park in front of your mailbox, you know, and different things. So make sure you get plenty of parking, you know, for that. But another thing, I want all of you to go out and take a walk on that dike at Bay Beach. I've mentioned to a couple aldermen, and they said, oh, it's okay. My dike, if you go stand down below, is about almost 8 feet up to the top. Go take a look out there and see how far your dike is. It's about 3 feet above the water. If we ever got one of those big storms like we went through, 73, all that sand you put there is all gonna end up in Bay Beach and all your equipment's gonna be underwater. So I think you better look at your dike height. I think you need, I don't know if it's settled or if it's because the bay is bringing more sand, you know, but I think you better look at your height on your dike. I think you have to, something that you better, you know, I think you all really go up, take a look. I mean, I walked up there and I thought, oh my God, I
Okay.
couldn't believe.
Thank you, Kathy. Other comments? Anyone else?
Motion to
Okay,
return to regular order of business.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to return to the regular order of business. All in favor signify by
Aye.
saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Could we ask our consultant, since you're here, give us your thoughts on the discussion you've heard?
Yeah, I just wanted to provide on the record, as part of the research and work we've done as part of this project, we did sample the sand across the Bay Beach proposed area. We did do sampling and testing, and there is no traces of any contamination whatsoever. So although the Fox River may deposit, it is a depositional zone. We have tested the area of where we're proposing the beach, and the beach has proven to be clean of contamination. So that's the first step, which is an important issue, and that was one of the primary things we wanted to focus on. On top of that, we're adding a significant amount of clean sand. It'll actually provide better porosity and better beach habitat, and it won't be as stagnant with respect to the soil, not the water perhaps. And secondly, we did communicate directly with Professor Miller as well. We were very well aware of his studies. I received some of his information in regards to how the Fox River deposits into the bay, and then some of the modeling that would indicate potential algae blooms. So it's important to understand that we have done a thorough analysis of the background and forecasting. I think the full intent is to have a very good monitoring plan. Dan had mentioned certainly the first discussion on the monitoring plan, but the intention would be to work with the Public Health Department and really come up with a good plan. And so the comments that are made are excellent and on point, but I think we are ahead of that, and we've documented this in the environmental document to address the fact that we have we intend on a plan, we intend on doing monitoring. What that is still to be determined. So just wanted on the record a few key points of the research we've done.
If you were to project how many days a year you feel the beach would have to be closed because of, various pollutants, what would you say would be?
I will say I'm not an expert in that, but based on what I've been seeing, it does tend to be later in the season. It does tend to be as the waters warm up. It does tend to be where you're getting a flush from storm events, and then immediately thereafter. I certainly do not want to profess to be an expert in that, so I would decline the answer. But just based on what we've all seen and so forth, and what Lake Winnebago and others have experienced, it does tend to be later in the summer. Again, I'm not the expert for that. But I think Angela from Bay Lakes made a very good point. It's still providing access to the beach over the year. And certainly during the park time that the park is open, I would say the hope would be a lot more time that is open than closed, but I don't want to make an estimation on that. And lastly, I think nobody fully grasps what this is and how to handle it. So although a year might conclude some studies, I think this is an ongoing thing. And then lastly, and I don't want to take up too much time, but one of the comments that was made to me during this process was the idea of the beach and the idea of all the work that's going on with cleaning the Fox River through this cleanup really has brought a focus to the waters of Green Bay and the importance that they play into the community development, access to those who can't get to water. I mean, they might have to travel 30 miles to get to a public beach on Lake Michigan. Sometimes that's pretty challenging for some individuals. So I think this is an important public works project. I think it's very positive. And the fact that it's being focused on and people are considering it, I think it's going to accelerate the cleanup. Large mega farms are in discussions, and they've got groups that are talking with representatives of the state. How can they improve water quality downstream within the Fox River? So it's really just the beginning of a much larger discussion that needs to be had. But I do think we've done enough research to put together a reasonable and acceptable plan to protect the public and yet have an excellent public works project. So thank you.
Mr. Weary.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Mr. Haas. It looks like you did put a lot of work into this, and I do have a couple questions. The first is we heard about the dike height. Did you study that at all? Do you have any comment on that?
My comment is the proposed boardwalk would be at or greater than the existing. I'm not aware of any settlement. This is stiff clays that are in position. There's heavy riprap that's on the front of this. It's been there since the 70s. There's no indication that we have of erosion within this area. I haven't taken elevations to know if there's been a settlement, but we do have the original plans from the Army Corps of Engineers, and we have not been in any indication that there's an issue with that. We also, as part of the process, have to work with the Corps of Engineers to get this permitted, and to this day, things are progressing very well, and they understand our intentions. So I'm not concerned with respect to the elevation, and we are at or above in our proposal. We'll maintain the reinforcement, by the way, and just build upon that. So we really don't want to take away the reinforcement that's already there. We just want to reinforce it, build upon it, and strengthen it.
And then secondly, thank you, what is the cost of just the pier?
Approximately 2.3 to 2.5 million is the estimate.
So I think we heard some comments about perhaps doing that first, and then the other parts later. And I know there might be some workarounds with how you do the sand and bring in the underflow, but anything's possible, right?
Everything's possible.
Okay. That's all I have right now. Thanks.
Okay, other questions? Comments? I think that in terms of, I'm going to ask Diana about bonding. The bonding rates are very good right now, and there's been a lot of discussion about how interest rates are going to go up. If we bond and we don't use the money all immediately, the city does invest that, so we're not we're not losing a whole lot because we're collecting interest on the money while it's in the account. Is that, am I?
Yes, that is correct. The money is put into into a money market, and there is interest that is earned on it.
Okay. So I just wanted to make that point. Does the staff have a recommendation on a motion that you'd like to come out of?
Well, our recommendation would be to fund the $3 million in city bonding for the beach pier, boardwalk and bathhouse, and then to authorize staff to seek grants and initiate a fundraising campaign for the remaining 2. So that would be our recommended motion.
Okay. Mr. Word.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dan or James, contingency, we heard about a contingency fund. Is there one built in right now?
Right? Is that the contingency built into that $5 million estimate? Can you tell me what that is?
We would have a 15% contingency.
Okay.
So of the 5 million, 15% of that is contingency?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, anyone like to make a motion?
Well,
Okay.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other issues?
I do like the idea of doing the pier first. I think that's, I think the pier's something I've always thought would be excellent there. I think a lot of people would use, whether they want to swim or not. Now, this brings me also into the fundraising part. And having been involved with Resch and Joanne's, we saw a pretty adamant position from the mayor and from the council that the fundraising be done first before you move ahead with the project. That happened with Resch. We had to wait a year till we raised it. That happened with Colburn. We waited a couple years now. You fundraise it first and then you come back. I would be fine with that type of plan. And then once the dollars are allocated or fundraised, then we move ahead with the pier. Because I would like to see the study. I mean, we've heard not only from, Ms. LaFave and the other, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. About the cyanobacteria. Mr. Charles even added, the Friends of Bay Beach is concerned and admits it's a real issue. We don't want to damage our reputation at Bay Beach. Really concerned about safety. Those are all direct quotes. I think it's prudent to wait, and I think even our Mr. Hazlitt said nobody grasps what this, meaning the cyanobacteria, is and how to handle it yet. So I think before we put money on something that we don't even grasp what it is, we don't want to build something and then people have to go swimming and then have to put up a fence or a lot of signs that, hey, you know what, you can swim, but you really shouldn't. I mean, we all would love to have swimming back, but let's find out what that means first. So I think we fundraise, put the pier in. During that time, we'll get the results back, and then we can look at a beach. So,
Well, I think it's kind of like your issue, though, with Colburn Pool, that when you fundraise, people want to know that the city is committed to the project. And, and that's also true of grant applications. I think a lot of grant applications may require some match by the local governments.
Correct.
So, it's kind of a double-edged sword. You what do you do first? I think if it's a project that we want to move forward with, you're not going to find interest rates any better than they are right now for a long time.
I welcome your comments. I wish they were there when we were fundraising for Colburn Pool. I really do. My motion would be to refer this to the mayor's office to fundraise $1 million towards the pier, and then to come back and we'll move forward with that project.
Okay. And to authorize staff to file grant applications?
Yeah, I think that goes without saying, yeah. Be grants or fundraising.
Is that workable?
The motion would be to have the mayor fundraise $1 million.
To authorize fundraising.
Grants or
And
fund.
just look at the pier.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not comfortable moving ahead with the beach right now. And several people weren't, if we heard the comments correctly.
Okay, other thoughts?
Do we have a second?
Is there a second?
No.
I have a comment.
I'll second it.
Okay.
So we can go into discussion.
Okay, Alderman Nicholson second. Okay, let's get the discussion. Do you want to speak first, Andy?
Now, John.
Okay, John?
I think from the comments we've heard here, about some of the issues that are coming up, I think that we're jumping the gun a little bit. This is kind of the first we heard about it at our committee, about the costs and things like that. I think we should take a step back and just wait a little bit and then have more discussion, more information. People that came from Milwaukee or wherever they came from that gave the comments, I think those are very questions that should be addressed first before we decide to, jump in on bonding and fundraising, because they go hand in hand. Bonding, fundraising are all tied together, and we would want to make the city look bad as far as what we're doing. So I wouldn't recommend that we approve any bonding at this time. And I think we have to have more discussion. The public deserves more discussion on this, and that's why I feel that that's what we should do. We shouldn't just jump ahead and, get all the facts and let people make a decision that way. And then we'll have more information, we can make a better judgment. That's my comment. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to state your motion, Chris?
Yeah, the motion was to have staff and the mayor fundraise, because he had volunteered, remember, to fundraise $1 million or grants to put towards the pier, and then bring the proposal back. I'm fine with moving ahead with the pier. We're not bonding for it right now, we're just saying get that going, because irregardless of the beach, the pier should be there. I think that's a great amenity, and we should have that. And then give us a year and we'll know a lot more about the water, and maybe we'll find out there's really no concern. All right, full skate mat on the beach. Maybe we'll find out the opposite.
So it's a phased approach, basically.
So it'll be $1.5 million bonding for the pier?
No, I didn't have any bonding in there. I had just the
Correct.
fundraising portion.
The motion was just to begin fundraising $1 million towards the pier.
Grants or
and-
fundraising, yep.
and
I'm just
bonding would become
just sticking with the
after
same
that.
standard that has been applied to other large projects.
Okay, other discussion? Okay, if not, we have a motion and a second. Does your second still hold, Andy? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries. I'm sure there'll be some discussion of this at council again next week, so we can share this information with our colleagues and we'll discuss it further. Okay? Thank you, everybody, for being here. Okay, number 4, consideration of possible action on the agreement approval of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department capital improvements plan request.
I don't know who I do that, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm breaking meeting rule. I just want to know the Ferris wheel and the train track, that's
Dave,
gonna.
can we continue with the meeting, please?
There's a gentleman,
I mean,
Charles, you
we
probably
can
know,
talk to
you know
someone
more
up
about
there.
Bay Beach than.
I'm sorry, I never been to Bay Beach.
No, that's all right.
Right there.
I'm not sure what the procedure
But here's a
is.
gentleman who knows it backwards and forwards.
This is the guy
Yeah,
that
these
runs the
two.
park.
If you
Right.
don't mind, yeah.
He knows everything.
Okay. Dan passed out the proposed capital improvements plan for Park Department, and I went over this with him, and most of the things in there are fairly routine type of things that we do. There are a couple of highlights that Dan.
So, yeah, I'll try and make this brief. I know that we do have a public hearing at 6 o'clock. So, in general, I handed out a piece of paper or a packet. This is the amount of donations and grants that the Parks Department has brought in over the last year. So we've brought in a total of $945,205 worth of grants and donations. And then in addition, there were 42 donation or volunteer projects under $5,000. So we rely heavily on these, so this is a pretty good year for it. There's also several donation and fundraising campaigns in process. These would include the Ferris wheel at Bay Beach, Colburn Pool, and the 4K Nature Center edition at the Sanctuary. And these dollars will be reflected in the 2018 donation list after the money is transferred to the city and the projects are completed. The second piece of paper I handed out was our actual bond request, and this is a staff recommendation. I'll kind of briefly go through some of these. So Beaver Dam Ball Field, so we just renovated 2 of the ball fields there. We would like to do sports lighting, which we have partially funded already. This $80,000 will complete that necessary funding to do sports lighting and then add bleachers and scoreboards. Paving, we have $400,000 listed for Optimist Park. What that is we would be rebuilding the parking lot and also doing walkways. We do have a donor group that has committed to building a concession stand with restrooms. They still want to proceed with that. I do have a plan if you're at all interested and you want to see the master plan for that. So this $400,000 is not for the concession stand, it's for the paving and stormwater management associated with it. $150,000, this is miscellaneous paving throughout the parks. A lot of times we put that in there to handle our paving projects throughout the years. And that can go towards any project that really needs to be done within that year. Playgrounds, we have $60,000 in there for a new downtown pocket park playground. So this would be a new amenity that is currently not in the downtown area. And what we'd be looking at doing is kind of a fun artistic playground, so it wouldn't be a traditional structure or, you know, with slides and decks and climbers. This would be more artistic with rubberized surfacing. And it's just to accommodate all the people downtown. Shelter repairs, carpentry projects. So here's a list of all the different ones that we are asking for. I just want to touch bases on a couple different ones here. So we do have five hockey rinks right now. 4 of them are really old. So we're proposing to replace 2 of the hockey rinks this year. And then the other 2, we'd ask for another $22,000 next year for that. Some of the other big ones are enclosed Red Smith shelter for $30,000. As you know, we got funding to put bathrooms in at Red Smith. What this would go towards is to create, take the open shelter that's there and then actually enclose a portion of it so that we can have a rentable shelter and we can run our park program out of there. So the footings are already in place and ready for it, so it's minimal expense to actually enclose it and just do a new flooring and run electric in there. So that's what that $30,000 would be for. The $50,000 for the wildlife sanctuary, that's for HVAC repairs to the Woodland Building and Nature Center. Then we also want to replace the water filtration system for the otter exhibit. Pool repairs, we have $120,000 in pool repairs. These are repairs at Resch and Joanne's only, not at Colburn. So those pools are getting pretty old. The Resch one isn't that old, but we already had one of our main filters fail, and there's signs that the second one's about to fail. So we want to take preventative measures so that it doesn't crash on us midway through the season. The other ones are just, it's time to get some maintenance work done on the slides and replace the pool grates, which we've had issues with, and we've replaced probably half of the grates already. This funds the rest of them. So miscellaneous projects, we put Bay Beach in here. Obviously with the recommendation from the last item, we will pull that out based on your recommendation. I did want to note in here that there was no intentions not to have Colburn Pool on this request. It was new on the agenda. We weren't sure how the committee was going to vote with it, so we just left it off for discussion. So that wasn't done purposely to show that Colburn staff wasn't in favor of it. I just wanted to point that out. Equipment replacement. So this is the same equipment for the most part that we asked for at the budget time. Some of that stuff was cut out of the budget. We're just asking for it again. We did have one piece of equipment for $65,000, I believe, in the budget, which was a large mower. We instead reevaluated our needs, and the last 4 items on the list here for equipment replacement, we pulled the $65,000 mower out, and instead these 4 items are a higher priority for us. So our grand total for equipment replacement is $225,000. Where it says shortage from budget, $36,000. The equipment was actually budgeted in 2018, but they just took a lump sum out to balance the budget. So this is throwing it back in so that we can buy all the equipment that was actually approved at the budget. So This is our request, and I don't know, I think that...
I guess I'll take amendments. You want
Sure,
to
I'll
take
do it.
them one by one, Chris?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first would be to remove the $3 million from miscellaneous projects for Bay Beach, Sand Beach, Boardwalk, Pier, and Bathhouse.
Okay, so motion by Alderman Weary, second by Alderman Nicholson, to remove the $3 million. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Second?
The second one, maybe you need to step out for a second. We'd add $285,000 for engineering plans related to Colburn Pool, Phase 1, or however you want to word it. That's the removal of that part. So $285,000 I would add in for bonding for the engineering costs we've already incurred for Colburn Pool.
Well, the motion failed on a tie vote to proceed with Colburn Pool, so is that something we want to address at the council? Since we're
Looking for a
addressing
second,
the
if
whole
there's no
issue
second,
there?
that's fine.
What are the wishes of the other members?
All right, then the second motion I'll try is to add $2,206,100 for Colburn Pool. That's excluding the original engineering cost.
Okay, there's a second? Okay, so maybe those are motions you need to make.
I'll try, I'll
Can
try.
you say that number again, please?
$2,206,100.
Okay, are there any other questions
I do.
on the bond, on the proposed bonding?
I do, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Under playgrounds, new downtown Pocket Park Playground for $60,000. Now, we have, as we all know, a long list of projects and needs. This one I've never seen on there. So how did it jump from the bottom of the pile, or not even being on the pile, to the top? And if we removed it, is there what's at the top of our list that we could nibble at?
Well, how it got on the list is the RDA is in the process of doing a property trade for the old mall building. They currently own some property where that building is. And then as part of that trade, the new owners would get the building, and then the RDA would acquire a property right next to it, which is currently a large concrete area. And so that was a recent development that just came up recently. So that's how it got onto the priority list.
Do you have something near the top that would be about this value?
I don't know that offhand. I can get you an answer at council.
Then I'll make a motion to remove the $60,000.
I'll second it.
Okay, the motion is second to Alderman Nicholson.
Question, Dan.
Yeah.
I know I requested drainage at Wilder. Where's that at?
We already regraded some of that to help it drain better, so hopefully
Okay.
in the spring you'll see it. We addressed it this summer.
Does it need anything else, or?
We're hoping that what we did takes care of it, because it
Okay.
was just, a matter of inches is really what,
Okay.
all that you can really do.
Thank you.
Question I had was about the thing we talked about at the last council meeting, that trail at Grandview Development. I presume if the city has to be responsible for this cost, we need to bond for it.
We will either need to bond for it, or we can use the parkland fees and phase it in as the property is developed. I mean, we'll get $38,000 in parkland fees. We can build a section of the trail with that. And then as more development occurs in there, we can use the parkland fees for that one potentially, so. But the development isn't there, so we didn't feel it was a high enough priority to bond for it this year.
Okay. Mr. Weary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm fine with the idea of a pocket park. I just don't know if we should come in from not being on the list at the top of the list. And I think it might be a prime place where you could put some TIF dollars. It's right in the TIF district. I'm sure that's a pretty small amount for a TIF, that we could work that in. So that's why I'm taking it out of here. I don't think it should come from this line item. I think it could come out of the TIF, or it should get in line with the other ones, and we can evaluate, do we want a downtown park, which I've never heard anybody ask in my district, or do we want to put some more swings at Beaumont, or fix some water drainage at Wilder? So that's the reason I took it out.
Well, I think that it might be helpful if staff could give a little analysis of that, and, maybe also on the Optimus Park project, so that when it reaches the Finance Committee and Council, that we are better informed of that. But for now, we have a motion to remove that. Motion and a second to remove the 60? Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. All in favor, signify.
Somebody wanted to talk about it?
Okay, let's,
Motion to open the floor.
yeah. Matt is part of staff, so I think, come on
Hi.
forward.
Sure, Matt Buchanan, I work for the Economic Development team. A little bit of background on the Pocket Park. So this is an amenity we would love to see in the downtown. This is going to be right in front of the Hotel Northland, which we all want to see be successful. Right now there's a lot of concrete right there. Also a loading dock right at the entrance to the Hotel Northland. We've got a lot of great businesses in the downtown that support this that I've been in contact with. We have a new Spring Lake Church in that property. We have a lot of new housing in the downtown. So that's kind of where the reasoning for this new Pocket Park had kind of come from. I've had several conversations with downtown businesses. We would be working with Spring Lake Church and the Bay Lake Condo Association building to raise funds as well. So this would be actually a public-private partnership with those organizations.
Okay.
Thanks, Matt. As
Sure.
part of the economic development team, did you talk about TIF dollars at all and using those, since it's?
That was not discussed, I don't believe.
I wanna-
It might be a possibility.
Thanks.
Yeah, I can
Because it sounds like a
understand
good
the concern of people, because this is the first time we've heard about that
Sure.
project. So,
I didn't even know it was going to be on the agenda today either until
Yeah.
about an hour ago.
Can I tell you what it looks like, how big it is?
okay.
We'll refer this one back, Dave, to our next meeting about this.
Yeah, maybe we could put it on our next agenda.
Put it on hold on that.
Okay, so for now, the motion is to remove it
Thank
with
you.
the item being discussed further at our next meeting. Would that be
Yep,
acceptable?
that's fine.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that it, or are there other
There-
amendments that you'd like to make? Okay, if not, could we have a motion to approve the capital improvements plan as amended and submitted to the Finance Committee for further review?
Yes, correct.
Okay, all in favor signify, do we have a motion?
Yes.
Motion by Alderman Weary, second by Alderman Vanderleest. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Just one quick thing, so there is a public hearing scheduled at 6 o'clock, so we'll have to, postpone the meeting and reconvene afterwards, unless you want to just accept all the motions for the recommendations to purchase. If you want to review them, we can come back,
Well,
otherwise, if you want to
Yeah,
just
we
approve it.
received a report with all the recommendations and the bids for these purchases. I don't have any problem with it.
Make a motion to approve.
Yeah.
Yeah, motion to approve, motion by Alderman Nicholson, seconded by Alderman Vanderleest to approve the requests. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Director's report, we also
Motion
have.
to receive and place on file.
Written report, so make a motion to
Already did.
receive and place on file the director's report. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
By Alderman Nicholson, seconded by Alderman Weary to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we stand adjourned.